How many times do you think you used AI yesterday? If your honest answer is zero or close to it, I think you're going to be really surprised. There are really two kinds of you watching this. The one that feels pretty confident they know what AI is about, but really they have a lot of misconceptions. And the one who's never really looked into it and isn't sure where to start. Both of you are exactly who this is for. In this video, I want to walk you through AI from the very beginning. No jargon, no assumed knowledge, the handful of terms you keep hearing about, where it's already quietly built into your day, and the concerns that are actually worth taking seriously. So if you're finding this interesting so far, please click the like button so more people can find this content. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to the Arts Workplace. I'm Amy, and I created this channel to share what I've learned with the arts and culture community. So what is AI in plain terms? At its core, AI is software that finds patterns in large amounts of data. And then it uses those patterns to make a prediction, a decision, or more recently, to generate something new like a sentence or an image. That's really it. It's not a robot with a mind of its own. It's not magic. It's pattern recognition, done at a scale that no person could ever do by hand. And it's been quietly built into ordinary software for years, well before anyone was calling it AI in a headline. Here's the part worth understanding before we go any further, because it explains a lot of what's coming later in this video. When you ask a tool like ChatGPT or Claude a question, it isn't looking up anything in a database somewhere. It's predicting, one word at a time, what the most likely next word is, based on patterns it learned from huge amounts of text. And that's really it. That's the whole trick. It's an incredibly sophisticated version of the autocomplete on your cell phone, not a system that actually knows things in the way you and I know things. Before we go further, let's walk through the terms you hear about AI one at a time in plain language. Once you understand these 5 terms, the rest of what you hear about AI actually clicks into place instead of just sounding like buzzwords. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is the umbrella term for all of it. It's software that finds pattern in data and acts on them. The idea goes back to 1950 when a mathematician named Alan Turing asked a simple question: can machines think? The term itself was coined in 1956 at a research conference in Dartmouth, so the label alone is already about 70 years old. Role-based AI, also called symbolic AI, is the earliest kind. A person sat down and explicitly programmed every single rule the system would follow by hand. One of the first real-world examples was a medical diagnosis tool built entirely out of rules the expert had written down. It worked, but only within the rules someone thought to include. Machine learning is next. Instead of a person writing every rule, the system learns the patterns directly from the data instead. This picked up through the 2000s and the 2010s, and it's the type of AI that's actually been quietly running in the background of your life for years. We'll walk through exactly where in a minute. Generative AI is the type that creates something new: a sentence, an image, a summary, instead of just sorting or predicting. Most people's reference point for this is ChatGPT, which launched on November 30th, 2022. It's worth knowing, though, that the underlying technology was not new that day. It had been in development for years. That launch of ChatGPT is just when most people started paying attention to it. Now, agentic AI is the newest term, and the one you're starting to hear right now. Instead of just answering one question, these systems can take a series of steps on their own. They can work toward a goal, searching for something, using other tools to check their own work, sometimes with a person approving each step along the way, sometimes not. And that's the full set of definitions. AI is the umbrella, role-based and machine learning are how it gets built, and generative and agentic AI are what it can actually do once it's built. Now let's walk through where this actually shows up. AI has been quietly embedded in ordinary software for years, and most people never recognize it as AI at all. Here it is, grouped by where you'll actually run into it. So, starting with communication, your email spam folder is AI. It's learning what junk mail looks like and filtering it out for you before you ever see it. Autocorrect and predictive text on your phone are also AI. It's guessing your next word as you type, and so are the autocomplete suggestions when you're typing into a search bar on, say, Google. Entertainment recommendations is another example. When Netflix suggests a new show for you, it is using AI, predicting what you'll want to watch based on patterns in what you've already watched. Another example is your vehicle navigation or your phone navigation app. Your Maps app telling you exactly when you'll arrive, accounting for traffic, it's predicting in real time. That's AI as well. Safety and security is another area. When your bank flags a weird charge on your card before you even notice it yourself, or when your Photos app on your phone is quietly grouping every picture of the same person together without you telling it who that person is. None of that required you to open an app that was specifically called AI. It was just already there, running quietly in the background of things you already use every single day. If any of this is surprising to you, please subscribe because there's a lot more content like this coming. Okay, so that is the AI you didn't choose to use, and it is powering most of the technology that runs our lives. But there's a whole landscape of AI tools people go looking for on purpose, and it really helps to know the names. Let's talk about the most frequently used LLM tools, and that stands for large language models, the ones you talk to directly. First, there's Claude, which is my go-to tool and what many of my videos are built around. The one most of you have heard about is ChatGPT, and there's also Google's tool Gemini, and then there's Copilot, which is Microsoft's version built right into Word, Excel, and Outlook if your organization uses Microsoft 365. All four of these tools are generative AI. And honestly, they're more similar than different for most everyday tasks. There are many AI tools available beyond those four, including specialized tools for video and image creation. You definitely don't need to master all of them. You really just need one good tool. Maybe it's the one your organization already has access to, or it's just the one that's easiest for you to start with. Now, if you've heard anything about AI at all, you've probably picked up a general sense that it is controversial. Maybe you've seen headlines. Maybe a friend of yours has strong opinions or opposition to AI. Maybe you just have a vague feeling that something about AI isn't quite right. I want to actually walk through that with you because some of what you've heard is genuinely valid. And there's more happening to address it than most of the news coverage lets on. Let's start with the training data question. A lot of AI tools were built using the work of writers, artists, and creators who never agreed to it and never got paid for the use of their work. And sadly, that part is true. It is a real grievance. There's also a real question about jobs tied up in this, about which tasks AI takes over and what that means for the people who used to do those tasks. But here's where the story usually stops and really where it shouldn't. Writers and publishers actually sued over this, cases that are still working through the courts right now. And separately, a real licensing market has started to form. So news organizations, publishers, and rights holders are signing deals worth real money to license their work for AI training going forward. It's not a finished solution. There are plenty of smaller creators still getting left out of these deals, but it is a meaningfully different picture than nothing happening at all. Then there's bias. AI can repeat and even amplify bias that already existed in the data it was trained on. And when that shows up in something like hiring or lending, the impact is real. What's changed is that this is no longer just a talking point. Regulators are actually stepping in Cities and states now require companies to run independent bias audits on the AI hiring tools that they're using, and they have to publish those results. So it's not completely solved, but it is being measured, tracked, and it is increasingly regulated, not just quietly ignored. Okay, and then there's the reliability debate. Remember earlier when we talked about how these tools predict the next likely word instead of just checking what's actually true? Well, that does have a real consequence. It is possible for generative AI to state something completely false with total confidence. Could be a fake statistic, a made up quote, a court case that never happened. There is a name for this, and we call it hallucination. And it's not rare or a bug that's about to get fixed. It is baked into how these systems work. So the response here isn't a fix so much as a habit. You need to treat AI output the way you treat a tip from someone you don't know well yet. Maybe it's useful, but worth checking before you rely on it. Companies are also getting better at flagging uncertainty and citing sources so you can verify claims yourself. And that part is genuinely improving. Then there is the environmental piece, which is the one that surprises most people, but in my experience is the number one reason people tend to oppose AI. Every time you use one of these tools, that request goes to a data center, which is basically a massive warehouse full of computers running around the clock somewhere, doing the actual work of finding the pattern and generating the answer. Training and running AI takes real electricity and real water at a genuinely very large scale, partly to power all of those computers, but also partly to keep those computers cool. That's a real cost, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But the response to that challenge is real too. Companies are signing long-term deals for nuclear and renewable power specifically to run these data centers. And newer chips are getting meaningfully more efficient per task than what was running even just a couple of years ago. Now, none of that makes the cost disappear. It just means that the industry is under real pressure right now from regulators, from the public, and increasingly from their own bottom line to actually deal with these problems instead of just absorbing the criticism and moving on. And that environmental cost connects to something else worth naming directly. And that is the actual impact on the communities these data centers get built in. When a data center comes online, it pulls enough power that it can push electricity rates up for everyone else on that power grid, including people who never asked for a data center to be built and they don't use AI at all. There's also a health concern tied to the water usage as well. Data centers use a huge amount of it for cooling, and in some areas that competes directly with the water supply the local community depends on for drinking, agriculture, and everyday use. And this isn't spread evenly. These facilities tend to get built in lower income communities and communities that are already dealing with other environmental burdens. So the impact lands hardest on the people with the fewest resources to push back or absorb it. These projects also get pitched to local governments as major job creators. And sometimes that is true, but a lot of that promised employment is short-term construction work, not the long-term jobs the pitch implies once the facility is actually up and running. But again, this isn't going unanswered. States are actually passing legislation right now requiring these companies to cover the real cost of the infrastructure they need instead of just quietly passing it on to regular ratepayers. And the communities themselves have been pushing back hard enough to actually delay or block a real number of these projects. So this is playing out in real time, and it's worth watching and paying attention to, not just accepting. So here's where I personally land on all of it. The concerns you've heard aren't made up, and I don't think you should brush them off. But they're also not the whole story, because there's a real ongoing effort on the other side trying to catch up to the technology. So you're allowed to use these tools thoughtfully, take the real costs seriously, and also give credit to the parts that are actually improving. If you want more honest breakdowns like this one, go ahead and subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of content I'm going to keep making. All right, so we just spent a lot of time talking about what's wrong with AI. Now I want to spend some time on the other side, because if all you take from this video is the concerns, you're only getting half the story, and honestly, the half that's easiest to write a scary headline about. So let's talk about what this technology has actually made possible. And let's start with medicine, because this is the one that I think matters the most. For decades, one of biology's hardest problems was figuring out the exact structure of proteins, the tiny building blocks that basically run every process in your body. Knowing that structure is key to understanding disease and designing drugs. But working it out used to take years of painstaking lab work, one protein at a time. An AI system called AlphaFold cracked that problem. It can predict a protein structure in a matter of minutes instead of years. And it didn't just win an award for it. It won the Nobel Prize in chemistry. Researchers are now using tools like it to speed up drug discovery for things like pancreatic cancer, and AI-designed drugs are already reaching human clinical trials. So this isn't a hypothetical future. It's happening in labs right now. And it's shortening timelines that used to take a decade down to a fraction of that. Then there's accessibility, which doesn't get nearly enough credit. For people who are blind or have low vision, AI can now describe what a camera sees out loud in real time, well enough to navigate a room or read a menu. For people who are deaf or hard of hearing, real-time captioning has gone from clunky and delayed to genuinely usable in everyday conversations and video calls. And for people with speech disabilities, AI-powered communication tools are giving some people a voice, sometimes literally, who didn't have an easy way to communicate before. This is the technology quietly giving people back independence they didn't have 5 years ago. And then there's disaster prediction, which is the kind of thing that saves lives in a very literal sense. AI weather models are now predicting the track of hurricanes and the location of severe storms with more accuracy and more lead time than traditional forecasting, sometimes hours further ahead than what we could do before. That's the difference between a community having enough warning to evacuate or not. These are not small improvements. More warning time, translated into real terms, is fewer people caught off guard when something dangerous is coming. So here's the honest, full picture. The same technology that raises real concerns about training data, bias, the environment, and the communities around data centers is also the same technology behind a Nobel Prize winning breakthrough in medicine, tools giving disabled people more independence, and models that give people more warning before a disaster hits. Both things are true at the same time. That's not a contradiction. That's just genuinely what powerful technology looks like. It cuts in more than one direction, and you get to hold both sides of that honestly. All right, so that's the real beginner's version. AI is pattern recognition at scale. It's not magic. It's already quietly embedded in your everyday life, whether you've noticed it or not. It does come with real concerns, ethical and environmental, and they are worth taking seriously rather than ignoring. But they are the same kind of concerns that come with the car you drive or the phone in your pocket. And most people don't think twice about those either. If you want to go deeper into the ethical side specifically, I made a whole video on that. You can check it out right here. If you've been ignoring AI as a trend that doesn't apply to you, I hope this gave you an honest, no hype starting point. And there's a lot more where this came from. So go ahead and subscribe, because I've got a lot more content like this coming. And I will see you in the next one.